Hey
Hi,
Claire, how are you?
I'm
How are you doing today?
fine. I'm all right, thank you. What do you say?
Handiri bo, I just wanted us to go deeper nenyaya yatiri kudiscussa what Hopewell Chin'ono posted about like mbudzi. It's more like mbudzi furira kwauri. Like, what's your take on that one? Like, people, we need to invest where we are rather than saying that you want to invest back home and knowingly that we're not going back home anytime soon. What's
You
your take
know,
on that one?
we are very, very, very much qualified to comment on this because we are both Zimbabweans who are in the diaspora. So we are very
Mm.
qualified to comment on this.
And
Personal. Huh?
before you go ahead, and for me, when I was reading that, I always think back, like when we have our one-on-one with our clients, like when you always people say that, you know what, I'm building back home, then you ask, but why? And
Why?
people will be like, it's my property. Then you'll be like, oh, okay.
Inini personally, mbudzi ngaifurire payakasungirwa
I
because
agree.
there is now going to be that illusion yekuti uri kudya iwo siri kudya. So if we are going to take it literally, if you are tied down and it's within 5 meters, the rope is 5 meters,
Mm.
you can't be looking at the crow kwawabva ukokoko kuti danga rangu iro ndokumba ndokwandodyira, where I am tied here pane tambo inongondiita kuti ndingoita 5 meters handisi kudya because hapazi pamba, you starve ka.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I'm thinking, uh, I don't have a place to call my own in this country because I want to have a place that is not even my own in Zimbabwe. Because most of the times that house or whatever in Zimbabwe that you call your own is not your own. It's either it's owned by your business if you're going to be Airbnb in it, or it's owned by
Yes.
a relative if you're going to have relatives who stay there,
You say the
or
yes.
or it's just going to be a place. But your heart calling it your own chezo zvinge zvine kaku.
Mm. And for me, when I was also looking into that one, okay, let's say, okay, maybe we say, okay, I want to invest back home, boss. Okay, home is home and home is best. But how many times do you go back to that house? Like, that's what I always ask people, the clients, like, how often times are you going to go back there? Then others will say maybe after every 2 years or after a year and all that. Then I'm like, but are you willing to invest in so much money back home? And with me also looking at the prices of properties back in Zim, like, I'm like, oh, this side I can actually buy a full house, which is already built in. Because with me, I was in that mentality, you know what, we want to go and buy back home. I remember in 2013, I think I told you that story before. We wanted to go and buy back home because we're like, home is home. And we were seeing ourselves
Yeah.
going back to Zim. But now it's a different story. But when we went back to Zim, we realized like the prices of land, just land only, not talking of a finished house, land only is so
Yeah.
expensive. That
Yeah.
money, we ended up coming back with our money. We have withdrawn our money, we came back with it, and we managed to buy a 3-bedroom flat with that money. I was also Tingra State only. So with me, when I
Yes.
did that calculations and the equations, I was like, no, what, the cost benefit analysis, it doesn't really make sense. And also thinking like I'm only buying maybe a land which gonna take me maybe 10 years to raise the money to start building it. And maybe when I build it, after building it, maybe it's gonna be relative staying there. Because if you also look at rental income in Zim, it's not also that high. Okay, I'm comparing to where I am now in South Africa. Like if you compare rental income back in Zim and rental income this side it actually makes more sense to say, okay, if I want to invest in property, it's better. Let me just do it here in South Africa where I am, because I'm still here in South Africa, because the economy is still better comparing back to Zim. So I think it's also going back to those analysts and see, okay, does it really make much future sense, finance sense when you're thinking about it?
So, trying to use the same analogy for the UK, UK is much more expensive. So, the amount of money that you can buy a stand in Zimbabwe might not necessarily be enough to buy a house in the UK, but you can have then deposit for you to start
For a
to get
mortgage.
a mortgage, right? Um,
Mm.
and a lot of people would then be like, if it's kwana imba, let me just buy the house in Zim instead of depositing for a mortgage. But there are things like when you get a mortgage in the UK, you'll be asked to have life insurance. And usually
Mm.
that life insurance pays out the remaining balance of
In case of anything happens, yes.
so if yes, so if you pass away, it will pay off the remaining balance of the mortgage. It means that your spouse and children will have somewhere to stay. if you pass away. If that's your biggest worry. So imagine
Yes.
white I'm born British, ako, and you have a paid off house in Zimbabwe, and
Zimbabwe.
then you die, auntie. Ukufira mahara, because they're not going to benefit anything. They're not going back to Zimbabwe. Why are they going to go back to Zimbabwe? Their lives are here. They have no one that they know in Zimbabwe. They have nothing that they're going back to Zimbabwe. So
Yes.
that's one thing you're supposed to start to think of. Kune kunonzi kufira mahara. You're just going to die, and the house that you left. We've seen this. If you remember the movie Neria, husband dies, the family takes away everything. We've seen this happening time and again. It's next to impossible for that to happen in a first world country. It's not going to happen. If you die and all you leave is 10,000 pounds, you're rest assured that 10,000 pounds is going to go to your children, because ndo mutemo wacho, and uri respected. Akuna this whole disputes that will happen. Yes, people will go to court and contest wills and things like that, but at least mutemo supports vana. So it's not going to be easy for people to disinherit your children, auntie, especially your diaspora born children.
Yes.
And then to add on to that, there's also that kuve rooted in the present, live izvezvi, not just my homeland. Yes, your homeland will always be a part of you, chichi and things like that. But if you grab something new land kwawave, urukubatsira the new generation, you're helping your children and their children to sort of like signal kuti we are not passing through, we are here. Because
we are here, and
if you take our children, they're not even more than 10 years old. If you take them and throw them in Zimbabwe, are they going to sink or swim?
They'll sink, definitely.
So if they're going to sink, it means most likely uchagarira vana ku foreign country until such a time when kuti if there's going to be a decision that's going to be made about going back to Zimbabwe, it's going to be me. I'm going back to Zimbabwe. So maybe look at your children and think, okay, fine. If I want to then go back to Zimbabwe, unobvuminzwa kutengesa that house yawatenga ku host country. You're allowed
and you can still go back and buy with cash in Zim.
So I don't think kuti we are out of options. We are trying to say kuti mbudzi ngaingonofurira mudanga maro full stop. Mbudzi haichadyi payakasungirirwa. I support Hopewell. I definitely support 100%.
Me too, I also support him, but I think it also goes back to the thing, like people will just want to say, oh, okay, maybe I need to invest back home because of that familiarity, that home is home, or maybe it's also that kind of decision also which will be coming from our parents, because our parents, they really do want us to invest back home. Because I don't know how many times my dad has asked me like, so I always respond to him, but like, we are here.
Yeah, and well, for you are just literally 1 hour away from home. It's just 1 hour flight. So you can be home every day if you want to be home for you.
If I want to, but
for me, I'm not to my home day hippie.
But Mama's like, okay.
I'll come and stay with you, Daddy.
So with me the other time, I ended up asking him, like, okay, if I buy a house that side, do you want to stay there or what? Like, what is it about?
What did he say?
He just said, no, it's good to invest back home. That mentality, like, it's good to invest back home. I'm like, we are okay for now. if you want it, to fine.
For some people, it will work out well, yes. But we are saying, Guti, for the purposes of Guti, you are, especially if you're still in your productive years. If you're still in your productive years, I feel like create a legacy of belonging. If you're going to be renting, let's say you're renting in South Africa, Nditi. If you're renting, it's easy for you to make a decision to change the kids' schools. It's easy for you to change your job. It's easy for you to... So you always not belong because you're nomadic. Your mind is in a space where if I want to up and go, I will up and go. But if you commit to getting a house, it means you're going to look at the schools around that district. You're going to look at the churches around that district. You're going to look at the, amenities and things like that. And you will settle. And you are building that belonging for yourself and your children. If you don't buy, it's very unlikely that belonging
Yes.
is going to come.
No, it won't come. And with me, I always say also, if you don't like kind of invest where you are, you find that man, obviously, you end up just wasting it away, to be honest, because there's no that commitment of you wanting to invest where you are. So you find, okay, whatever money you are just saying, okay, maybe let me build in Zimbabwe and all that. We always hear stories. I remember in the early 2000s, but UK, people used to send back money, investor and all that. Many people cried with that.
These days, if you
Mari
send a lot of
dzakadyiwa.
money, Tari, these days, if you send a lot of money, munhu kungowana eco cash chindege.
Oh, yeah.
Busy betting. Because it looks like that's the only employment that we're getting these days. You get money, betting. You get money, betting.
You go to betting.
Mhm.
So with that, I was just asking myself, like, where is this mentality really coming from? Is it because of the poverty levels, the rise of unemployment, which is really happening, where people are just like thinking, okay, it's easy to really get that much money. Like, if I've got $5, let me just go pack a dig and maybe get it to be $10. Like, what is it? Maybe when you look into the side of addiction, mental health state, what do you think is
I
really
think
happening in our
I
country?
think the
What?
first thing is the opportunity is there, mostly because upon a time, right? We don't have that
Mhm.
we couldn't upon a time. We have the time. Yokuita
What idle
that
time?
idle time and it.
Mm.
So and gambling is addictive because there's this rush dopamine release kuti paucha wina and things like that. And so you find with maybe that one win in 10 plays is all they're playing for, just that. Initially, that's what happens. And you get to a point where if it's $1 you're playing with, it's not enough. You want to
Mm.
spend more for the dopamine release to be a bit more and things like that. I think you saw the video. Yeah, was it Will Gonese, was it?
William
The
Gonese.
the
Yes, yes,
the
I saw it for
manager
William Gonese. Yeah.
yes, the manager, where was it, Baker's in? Have we lost you, Tari?